spent the past 100 hours watching One Piece and found 28 times One Piece got censored. Like the secret origin story behind the scar. If you watch the anime, you've probably seen the scar under Luffy's eye. But what you probably didn't know is that he's actually the one who caused it. While trying to show his bravery to Shanks and the crew, young Luffy would do this. And obviously, the scene was completely removed from the anime. But it only gets worse, because when Luffy and Zoro brought a ship full of food to this town of starving people, it seemed innocent enough. But the scene was much darker in the manga. A bunch of villagers were shown getting ready to end it all. But obviously, it got censored. You remember the scene where Zeph saved Sanji from drowning and lost his leg in the process? Well, that actually never happened. He originally saved Sanji without losing his leg, but in order to survive starvation on the island, he had to lose his leg. And you know, munch it. Ugh. That's just gross. But it's nothing compared to the changes made to Whitebeard's injuries. See, Whitebeard was injured a lot during the Marineford War, but most of them were very toned down in the anime. Like when Akainu attacks Whitebeard, he blows off half of Whitebeard's mustache. But in the manga, he actually blew off half of Whitebeard's face, and Whitebeard was still standing. Speaking of Whitebeard, the censoring started way before he even appeared. In the manga, this iconic pirate logo was actually shown as a Hindu manji symbol, which represents peace and prosperity. However, this symbol has since then gained a bit of a bad rep. So the anime changed the symbol to a cross, and later on the higher-ups actually asked Oda to change it in the manga. But this wasn't the only offensive symbol removed from the anime. While researching for this video, I noticed that the finger was removed from the entire anime, like this time when Law flipped off Kid, and then Doffy later on in the manga. And while the rest are pretty minor, it kind of makes sense it was censored because middle fingers are typically banned in a lot of shonen anime, probably because it's mostly kids watching. Now, the first part of the season actually had a good amount of scenes that were censored. When Sanji agrees to cook for Don Krieg's men, the other chefs point guns at him. But the anime changed this to them pointing giant kitchen utensils at him. And that's honestly one of my favorite changes that I found. It's just really goofy. And later on in that same season, we see a flashback of a young Sanji smoking because he wanted to prove to Zeph that he was a man. Now, obviously, the animation studio removed this scene as they didn't want to show a little kid smoking. I noticed something else in this next scene. I realized that they removed her foaming at the mouth, something that was shown in the manga. It turns out they did this every time a character was foaming at the mouth. Now let's go all the way back to episode 2. In the anime, Zoro threw a chair at Helmeppo's wolf, which ended up getting him arrested. But did you know that in the manga, he actually killed the poor wolf? And when Zoro was fighting Kabaji, you may remember him letting Kabaji hit his injury on purpose. It was actually because he wanted to show off his strength, but in the manga, Zoro literally hits his own wound. Now let's talk about Buggy the Clown, who has a pretty tragic story, because ever since he was a kid, he always got made fun of for his weird red nose. So one day, when he mistakenly thinks that one of his crewmates was making fun of his nose, he showcases his devil fruit powers by choking the dude like Darth Vader. And in the anime, Buggy ends up letting that crew member go. But in the manga, he actually holds him in front of a cannon and hits him point blank with a buggy ball. Dang, that man is really insecure about his nose. Another censored moment is when Bartolomeo overhears someone bad-mouthing Luffy, and being the super fan he is, he confronts the culprit. In the anime, Barto pulls the culprit by the tongue and beats him up. But did you know in the manga, Barto actually cut his tongue off? Dang, Oda really doesn't like people insulting Luffy. But at least the dude wasn't set on fire, because this dumb-looking pirate suffered just that. See, Bellamy and Roshio were playing a game of cards, and when Roshio ended up winning, Bellamy just couldn't believe it, because look how dumb this dude's face is. So I thought Bellamy was just gonna accuse Roshio of cheating, but he ended up stabbing Roshio's hand, shooting him in the leg, and then breaking a bottle of alcohol over his head. At this point, I was starting to feel bad for Roshio, but things got even worse when Bellamy's crewmates decided to join in. With a flick of a match, they lit the alcohol-soaked Roshio on fire and then kicked him out the window. Now that's what happened in the manga, but the animators must have felt bad for Roshio because they toned this fight down quite a bit. Instead of literally being lit on fire, Bellamy shot at Roshio and then kicked him out the window. Definitely not as interesting. And a similar change was made when Nojiko got shot. Originally, 3 soldiers are ordered to shoot at Nami, but in the anime, the Marine captain herself shot at Nami, and Nojiko took the bullet for her. But do you remember the time a dinosaur's head was chopped off? See, on the island called Little Garden, both Dory and Broggy tried to show off their strength by beheading a dinosaur. Oda specifically shows this moment in the manga, but in the anime, they just showed the reflection of it happening in the water. Another change made with Broggy was when Mr. 3 trapped him with his devil fruit powers. In the anime, he did this by shaping giant shackles to trap him against the ground. His method in the manga was a bit more intense because he instead shaped giant swords and ran them through Broggy's hands and feet. Did you know that Vivi was originally supposed to have a more suggestive design? While she was posing as an undercover agent, she was shown wearing a top with circles, but I guess the anime thought it was a bit too much because they changed it to this. The animation studio must have liked the original design a little because it made a cameo in 2007 when the 8th One Piece movie came out. Another moment that got censored was when Nami attacked Luffy. Remember when Nami fixed Luffy's straw hat and he immediately poked another hole into it? Well, it annoyed Nami so much that she poked Luffy in the eye with a needle, which definitely wasn't shown in the anime. Now, one thing that's definitely shown in the anime is Sanji being the biggest simp in One Piece. And it's during one of these simping moments that we had a crazy manga to anime change. See, Sanji was trying to save Nami from the horrible pirate Absalom, but then this happened. Sanji gets stabbed through the back. And even then, he refuses to get blood on Nami's dress. But in the anime, the knife doesn't go all the way through Sanji's body, to make it a little bit less gruesome. Now, these were just changes in the One Piece anime because an animation studio called 4Kids decided to remake One Piece for kids. And the changes they made were absolutely terrible. Like this infamous moment where they changed Sanji's cigarette into a lollipop. That cigarette literally defines Sanji's personality. I mean, you just can't take Sanji seriously when he's smoking a lollipop. But they didn't stop there because they also got rid of Smoker's cigars, which literally goes against his name. And it also looks really weird, as instead of having smoke coming from his cigars, it instead comes straight from his mouth, like he ate something spicy in a cartoon. But smoking wasn't the only thing 4Kids completely censored, because basically every weapon other than a sword was replaced. Guns were replaced with water soakers? Helmeppo's gun was replaced with some type of weird toy. I don't even want to try to figure out what that is. But the weapon censorship gets even worse. You have the barrel of a gun being changed to a shovel, sharp stakes being changed to plungers, and 4Kids literally changed Buggy's dual-wielding swords into a single sword. How stupid is that? 2 swords is just too scary, but 1 sword is good enough? They didn't even get it right because they made his arm part of the sword. And while 4Kids was busy turning weapons into dumb objects, they also got rid of every trace of blood. It looks especially crazy when Luffy fights Kuro because it looks like Luffy just walks away without a scratch. Now listen, we all know that pirates love drinking, and I can understand 4Kids not wanting that being shown to kids, but the way 4Kids deals with this in One Piece is just hilarious. See, instead of completely redesigning hundreds of scenes, they decided to change the color of every drink and have the characters point out that it's juice almost every time. But it actually gets dumber because when Zoro was left to die by the Marines at the beginning of One Piece, you may remember the little girl that would always bring him rice balls. Well, in the 4Kids version, it was replaced with cookies. I'm guessing that they were trying to make the show more appealing to American kids, and it makes sense because when I was a kid, I didn't know what the heck rice balls were. But that wasn't the only weird change that 4Kids made. For some reason, they had a vendetta against Luffy and didn't want him to be happy. They removed his smile here, and it just doesn't make sense. What? They don't want Luffy to be happy? Now, they definitely didn't want Ace to be happy because they literally deleted him from a scene. See, while Sanji is washing dishes in the scene, Ace was chilling in the room with him. And for seemingly no reason, 4Kids decided to just delete Ace from the scene. Yeah, don't watch 4Kids One Piece.